Hello and welcome to TryHard Reading Corner 15. 15. We made it, peoples. Wow. Today's been a great day. It's only been like an hour, but I'm gonna already tell you it's gonna be an amazing day. We have a guest. If you have not met him, it's a whale named Walter. I just made that decision. Walter the whale. And he is awesome, and I have this really fun Sharpie coloring book, so you're probably going to see a lot more sea creatures join us, but that is Walter the whale. Now, since this is Holy Week, and since Easter's coming, it's going to be great, I thought I would share with you one of my fondest Easter memories. And because of who I am, you know it's going to be silly and ridiculous and crazy. So here we go. When I was younger, I was blessed, and I have a lot of my grandparents still alive. So like all my grandparents and at the time, all of my great-grandparents. That's kind of crazy. But as a little kid, it was so hard to tell them apart because obviously when you have great-grandparents, like their last name is going to be the same as your grandparents. And so then when I would ask my mom, where are we going? And she would say, you know, Grandma Swinky or whatever. I didn't know what that meant. That could mean like 3 different locations. So I started doing this, but I gave all my grandma and grandpa's nicknames. Grandma and Grandpa Ryan were root beer grandma and grandpa because every time I went to bed, they'd give me root beer. It was awesome. Also, 7-Up root beer tastes like that party punch, and they taught me that, so thank you for that. Then there's Nana and Pa, which they're the grandparents they're my mom's parents, and that one was easier. And then Grandma Swinky was known as Trampoline Grandma. Now, why Trampoline Grandma? Because she had a trampoline, and it was probably I guess I picked like my childhood highlights whenever I visited them. That's what they were. So this was Trampoline Grandma. I was so excited. So it's Easter, and I have a bajillion and 5 cousins, which makes things so fun and entertaining and crazy. And all 5 bajillion of us would flood Trampoline Grandma's house for Christmas, for Easter, things like that. And I'm just really blessed to have such an awesome family because whenever we like all come together, it's like a beautiful, entertaining, chaotic, wonderful time. Like even if we've only seen each other maybe 3 times this year, like boom, we start right back where we left off. Like it's so much fun. So it's this Easter, we're going to Trampoline Grandma's. I'm so excited. All my 50 billion cousins, like it's gonna be amazing. And I have a couple of crazy aunts who, when I say crazy, it's like they're hilarious and they pull off the best stunts. And they plan the best things. Like they're so thoughtful in what they do. It's amazing. Love you guys. They always did a fun like activity with all the grandkids, and there were probably a little too many grandkids. There's so many of us. And so it was really hard to organize. So like for Christmas, they would do like a big Christmas activity. For Easter, da 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 da. So for Easter, they would do these super elaborate egg hunts. Now it's not just like, go have it, because then all the short, slow ones, me, would never come back with any candy or money or whatever, no eggs. So they were like super thoughtful in how they did it, so that way like every grandkid would get something or like get to do it or whatever, and it was awesome. They were amazing. So I'm not gonna lie, some of my memories of this are a little spotty, and you'll understand why because of what happened to me. But Trampoline Grandma lives on a farm, like a straight up farm. Well, I guess it's not like a straight up farm. She lives out in the country with a lot of land, farm-esque, okay? And so she had a lot of room and a lot of things to plan. And so the crazy aunts would force all the kids to like go in a room where you don't have any windows, and they would plan this huge thing in the yard. And when we got out, they told us, they said, okay, everyone has to get like 5 eggs, I don't know, some kind of number, a certain number of eggs in your color. They color coded it. They're amazing. It's like teacher goals. And then at the end of the hunt, you would find your basket, like your personalized basket. It was amazing. And what they did, which I don't even know how long this took, but they literally so like say my color was pink. I remember that at least. My color was pink. So if my color was pink, I'm looking for pink eggs. I got a pink basket, and they had this pink string that they would rope all around the yard to help me like follow and find my eggs. It was amazing. So they did the eggs, the yard, and they did all of it. It was so cool. It was amazing. And like at that point, I was like the cute younger cousin. Maybe they thought I was just the lost cause and I needed a lot of help. That ain't a lot either. But I was probably like 5, 6, and little Miss Johnson was short and stout, and I wasn't the fastest, but I was spunky, and I was ready to go. I was so excited. So we get started, and I'm following my little yarn, and I'm like untangling things because they were very elaborate in that, and I'm like I found an egg, and I'm so excited. But obviously, remember, little Miss Johnson is short and stout, and so I am not like winning. But everybody gets the same thing, so it wasn't a big deal. But I felt the panic of like, well, they got their third egg, and I only got my first, and you know, I'm high maintenance. And so then my older cousins were being super sweet and trying to help me because I was starting to get a little discouraged. Even though I had everything I needed to be successful in this Easter egg hunt, I was starting to get discouraged. And so they're like, don't stress, like it's gonna be great. Like, you know, just take your time. Oh, look, the string's going over here, go over here. And they're like trying to ease me and to help me. Now in the back of Trampling Grandma's yard is this big forested area, perfect for hiding things. And so all the kids were in the forested area now, and I'm still in the front yard, and I'm starting to panic a little bit. And so now I'm like picking up the pace and I'm running. I'm getting a little sloppy, and I'm running and I'm following the string and I'm picking up my eggs and I'm going. And then finally I finished that part, and it was time for me to like go into the forested area. And all my cousins are like, "Little Miss Johnson, come over here. I know where your basket is. Like, I'll help you." Being awesome homies. And so I get so excited and I'm like frantic, and I have so much energy, like an Energizer bunny, that I just start sprinting full speed, which is pretty impressive for a short, stout little Miss Johnson. I am just running, and I don't care what's going on around me, and I'm ignoring everybody because I want my basket. And so I am running. I'm getting to the forest, and then all of a sudden I feel kind of stuck, and I kind of look around, and then I get shot backwards. And then I remember opening my eyes, and I'm on the ground, and everything hurts, and I don't know why. And the forest is way up there, and I was way up there, and I'm like 2 yards back. And so I'm just kind of like, what just happened? And all my cousins are like looking down at me because I guess I did something impressive. And so I started crying, and they like found my basket for me, and like, I have your basket. I was just so upset. And I ran to the house, and I'm crying. Okay, also, no big family event is a legit family event unless you have some freak accident and a child coming in the house screaming, crying. Like that's a signature like family move of like, you have done the full family experience as long as somebody gets hurt in a silly way. So I was that child for Easter. I was that child a lot. So I come into the house, I'm crying, and my stomach really hurts. And so my mom was like, what happened? And so she pulls my shirt up, and across my little belly is this barbed wire imprint. My mind was so set on that basket and that chocolate that I was running, and I didn't even notice that all my cousins were climbing under the barbed wire fence to get into the forest. I just ignored the fence, and I was bolting it. And I kid you not, little Miss Johnson was running, and I basically slingshotted myself back with a barbed wire fence. Yeah, it was nuts. And the funniest part of it all was like, I had a perfect imprint of a barbed wire across my little belly. And I was so mad and so sad, but like, my grieving process was shortened a great deal because I had all my candy and eggs. But like, have you ever been slingshotted? Can you say you've ever been slingshotted? Because I can. And I love it because it just reminds me of the fun times with my fam and all that stuff. And it's so chaotic and crazy, and I love it. Like, oh, I love the holidays. It's great. So please don't run into a barbed wire fence this Easter. But yeah, have a fun time with your fam, you know, joke around, do your fun traditions. Enjoy this time because it's literally the best, and I know you'll look back on it and reminisce and be so grateful for the time you had with your loved ones. But yeah, I have run through a barbed wire fence. yeah, I was like 6. It was awesome. It was awesome now. In the moment, I was very upset. But today is a Wayside day. It's gonna be great. Let us recap where we were. Okay, so Jason got stuck to his chair with the gum, and Rhondy's beautiful with her missing teeth, but she doesn't know why. Ooh, chapter 14. I think of all the chapters I've read, I haven't read all of them to my classes, but for the 2 years that I've taught, this one gets some of the most laughs from my students. And honestly, it's just hilarious. So let us begin. Chapter 14, Sammy. It was a horrible, stinky, rainy day. Some rainy days are fun and exciting, but not this one. This one stunk. All the children were wet and wore smelly raincoats. The whole room smelled awful. "Ooh, it stinks in here," said Maricela. Everybody laughed, but she was right. There was one good thing, however. There was a new boy in class. New kids are always fun, except no one could even tell what the new boy looked like. He was completely covered by his raincoat. "Class," said Mrs. Jules, "I'd like you all to meet Sammy. Let's show him what a nice class we are." Leslie walked up and smiled at Sammy, but her smile quickly turned into a frown. "You smell terrible," she said. "Leslie," exclaimed Mrs. Jules, "that's no way to greet a new member of our class." Mrs. Jules wrote Leslie's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "But he does, Mrs. Jules," said Leslie. "He smells awful." "You're ugly," Sammy replied. "Now, Sammy, that is no way to talk," said Mrs. Jules. "Leslie, you're a very pretty girl." "She's ugly," said Sammy. Allison spoke up. "Well, you smell terrible and are probably even uglier, but nobody can see you because you're hiding under that smelly old raincoat." "That will be enough of that," said Mrs. Jules. "Now, Sammy, why don't you take off your coat and hang it in the closet? Let us all see how nice you look." "I don't want to, you old windbag," said Sammy. "It's because he's so ugly," said Leslie. "I'm sure he's quite handsome," said Mrs. Jules. "He's just shy. Here, let me help you." Mrs. Jules took off Sammy's coat for him, but underneath it was still another raincoat, even dirtier and smellier than the one before. They still couldn't see his face. "Oh, he smells even worse," said Maricela. "You don't exactly smell like a rose either," Sammy replied. Mrs. Jules took off his second raincoat, but there was still another one under that, and the smell became so bad that Mrs. Jules had to run and stick her head out the window to get some fresh air. "You're all a bunch of pigs," Sammy screeched. "Dirty, rotten pigs." The smell was overpowering. Sammy just stood there hidden under his raincoats. Mrs. Jules wrote Sammy's name under the word discipline. "Send him home on the kindergarten bus," said Joy. "Not with me," said Todd. Mrs. Jules held up her nose, walked up to Sammy, and removed his raincoat. She threw it out the window, but he still had another one on. Sammy hissed, "Hey, old windbag, watch where you throw my good clothes." Mrs. Jules put a check next to Sammy's name on the blackboard. Then she took off another raincoat and threw it out the window. The smell got worse, for he had on still another raincoat. Sammy began to laugh. His horrible laugh was even worse than his horrible voice. When Sammy first came into the room, he was 4 feet tall. But after Mrs. Jules removed 6 of his raincoats, he was only 3 feet tall, and there were still more raincoats to go. Mrs. Jules circled his name and removed another coat. She threw it out the window. Then she put a triangle around the circle and threw out another one of his coats. She kept going until Sammy was only 1.5 feet tall. With every coat she took off, Sammy's laugh got louder and the smell got worse. Some of the children held their ears. Others could hold only one ear because they were holding their nose with the other hand. It was hard to say which was worse, the laugh or the smell. Sammy stopped laughing and said, "Hey, old windbag, if you take off one more of my coats and throw it out the window, I'll bite your head off." "They smell too bad for me to allow them in my classroom," said Mrs. Jules. "You can pick them up when you leave." "They smell better than you do, pighead," Sammy shouted. Mrs. Jules didn't stop. She took off another one of his coats, and another, and another. Sammy was only 4 inches tall, 3 inches tall, 3 inches tall, 2 inches tall. At last, she removed the final coat. All that was there was a dead rat. "Well, I do not allow dead rats in my classroom," said Mrs. Jules. She picked it up by the tail and put it in a plastic bag and threw it away. Mrs. Jules didn't allow dead rats in her class. Todd once brought in a dead rat for show and tell, and Mrs. Jules made him throw that one away too. "I'm glad Sammy isn't allowed in the classroom," said Rondi. "I don't like him very much." "Yes," said Mrs. Jules. We caught another one. Dead rats are always trying to sneak into Mrs. Jewell's class. That was the third one she's caught since September. That one's always good. Okay, last one for today. Chapter 15, Dee Dee. This story contains a problem and a solution. Dee Dee was a mousy-looking kid. Unlike most children at Wayside School, she liked recess better than spelling. As soon as the recess bell rang, she would jump up from her seat and run out the door. There was a big sign in Wayside School on every floor, "No jumping down the stairs." Dee Dee never seemed to notice the signs. She jumped down the stairs. Some children took the stairs 2 at a time. Dee Dee took them 10 at a time. That was on the way down. It was funny. She never seemed to be quite in such a hurry on the way back up. There was another sign on Wayside School, "No cutting across the grass." Dee Dee must not have seen that sign either. She cut across the grass and ran up to Louie, the yard teacher. "I want a green ball," Dee Dee said. "The green balls are the best balls." "I'm all out of green," said Louie. "Okay, then I want a red one," said Dee Dee. "The red ones are just as good as the green ones. They don't bounce as high, actually. Sometimes you don't want a ball to bounce too high." "I'm all out of red balls, too," said Louie. "Do you have any left?" said Dee Dee. Dee Dee meant anything besides the yellow ball. There was one yellow ball in Wayside School, and Louie was always trying to get rid of it. It did not bounce, and it never went the way it kicked. "Anything at all?" said Dee Dee. "Today is your lucky day," said Louie. "I have one ball left, just for you, the one and only yellow ball." "No, thanks," said Dee Dee. "Oh, come on, take it," said Louie. "Why don't you ever have any green or red balls?" said Dee Dee. "I do," said Louie. "But the other children ask first, and by the time you get here, they're all gone." "But that's because I have to come all the way from the 30th story. How do you expect me to compete with the kids from the 1st and 2nd, she said. "That's why I saved you a yellow ball," said Louie. "Everybody wanted it, but I saved it for you." "I bet," said Dee Dee. She took the yellow ball and bounced it on the ground. It stopped dead with a thud. She stepped back up and ran up and kicked it. It went backwards over her head, and she didn't even bother chasing it. Instead, she played hopscotch with Jenny and Leslie. She thought it was disgusting. The next day, Dee Dee asked Mrs. Jewls if she could go to recess early. "Why?" asked Mrs. Jewls. "So I can get a green ball before Louie gives them all away," said Dee Dee. "I'm glad you have a good reason," said Mrs. Jewls. "Yes, you may go, but first, spell Mississippi for me." Spelling was not Dee Dee's best subject. By the time she finally got it right, she was 5 minutes late to recess. She jumped down the stairs, cut across the grass, and ran up to Louie. There were no green balls left. There were no red balls either. However, there still was that stupid yellow ball. Dee Dee played jump rope with Maricela and Joy. It was no better than hopscotch. So Dee Dee's problem was to figure out a way to get the green ball, or at least a red ball. You already know that this story also contains a solution. Dee Dee figured it out. So if you can too, remember everything you know about Dee Dee, Wayside School, and Mrs. Jewls. Hint: the next day, Dee Dee brought a cream cheese and jelly sandwich, some nuts, and shredded cheese in her lunchbox. Here's what happened. Just before recess, Dee Dee smeared the cream cheese and jelly all over her face. Then she stuffed her mouth with the nuts and hung the shredded cheese from her nose. When she closed her eyes, she looked just like a dead rat. Todd was in on the plan. "Mrs. Jewls," he called, "there's a dead rat in the classroom." Mrs. Jewls was very put out. "I want that dead rat out immediately." When Mrs. Jewls said immediately, she meant it. Dee Dee instantly found herself outside on the playground. "I want a green ball," she said. Louie pretended that he didn't hear her. "May I please have a green ball?" asked Dee Dee. Louie gave her a green ball. "I don't know how you did it, Dee Dee, but you're the first one today," he said. When Mrs. Jewls found out that Dee Dee and Todd had tricked her, she sent Todd home early on the kindergarten bus. Dee Dee threw the green ball in the air, and it bounced 50 feet straight in the air high, and then she caught it. "You don't like me, do you?" she asked Louie. "Sure I do," said Louie. "No, you don't," said Dee Dee. "Yes, I like you," said Louie. "No, you don't," Dee Dee insisted. "Yes, I like you, I really do," said Louie. "Are you sure?" asked Dee Dee. "Yes," said Louie. "Don't you believe me?" "I guess so," said Dee Dee. "Do you like me?" said Louie. "You bet," said Dee Dee. "You're my best friend." "Terrific," said Louie. "I've always wanted to be best friends with the dead rat." Oh, that one's fun. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy Easter break with your fam. Rest, relax, spend time with Jesus, spend time with your family, have some memories. I miss you. I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm proud of you. Pray for me too. And I hope you have a blessed Easter. See you guys.